awarded. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance if you're able. I would like to now introduce our board of directors. Tonight we have Cindy Coe, Madeline DeMatenon, Kathy Day, and I'm Mike Rowley. We're also joined by our superintendent, Troy Turno, executive director of teaching and learning, Jennifer Kuntz, executive director of finance and operations, Kim Snyder, and our student representative tonight is Yutong Liang. Board, the first action item is our consent agenda. We had the opportunity to review these items individually and seek clarification from the district admin prior to our meeting. I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Kathy has moved that we accept the consent agenda. Madeline has seconded. Board, any discussion? Call a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda has passed. Board, that now takes us into our administration part. And first up is Yutong and a student report.
Good evening. Today I'm going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about AI at the high school and then also a middle school visit that me and Amaya are going to do. So with AI at the high school, students are noticing more and more the advertisements about school AI because we have those TV up in the comments. And so they're really interested in how it works, but they're not really immersed in how it's really supposed to be used yet. And so they're just interested in how they can use it effectively and how they can incorporate it into their homework. And then I'm also seeing how teachers are starting to incorporate AI into their lessons more. And I think that's really exciting. And then our Morgan visit, me and Amaya are planning to visit Morgan next Tuesday, and we're going to talk to their ASB people. And we just want to see how their ASB differs from ours and how we can incorporate maybe some things from their ASB into our ASB or possibly give them some of our ASB into their ASB. And then we're trying to create a program that bridges the gap between our middle school and high school interaction, specifically in ASB. So yes, thank you.
Can I ask a quick question? I was wondering if you could give us some examples of what you've seen teachers do as far as AI in the classroom and how they're using it.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure which program it is, but there's a website where teachers can put in their lessons, and so when students are having trouble with their homework, we can ask the AI that specific topic, and the AI is created for just that homework or for that topic, and so very specific questions will be answered in a way that the teachers will want it.
Board, any other questions or discussion?
No, but I hope you'll report back after you meet with Morgan, with the students at Morgan, because we talked about it was that you guys going down there and kind of trying to get to know them. So I'm excited that you're doing that, and I look forward to hearing how it goes.
All right. Thank you, Yutong. And yes, you can be excused. So good luck with your other meeting tonight. Next up is our teaching and learning update, Jennifer Kuntz.
Okay, so these are just some highlights and updates on what's happening, what are the big things happening in April in TNL. And I can say April has been so far a very, very busy month. Here are some of the things that are being worked on. State testing, we concluded our WIDA testing and hope to have, or no, we will have results on that soon. WIDA is our language acquisition assessment. An exciting thing about this is we're going to actually get a new look at some of the data. So this is kind of just an aside, but I'm excited for it. There's someone in Clover Park School District who has a high interest in data and has been like pulling data and giving access to districts in a different way. So in the past, he's worked on student growth percentiles because we don't get the student growth percentiles until way later. So he said, well, that I can fix that. And so they weren't official, but he's like, send me your data and I'll crunch the numbers and send you guys back your student growth percentiles early. Well, now, I don't know if it's because of his work or what, but now the state's going to be releasing those in the summer. So his next project is gathering information that every district has been asking for easier access to, which is a better look at how are our multilingual learners progressing? We have they should exit out within 6 years. And they have that formula for what that looks like. But in terms of understanding, are they on track? Where are they at on that progression from early language skills to exiting? And what is actually more percentile wise, what we see with students in other states using WIDA, et cetera. So he's going to take on a new project. And for those districts that he worked with in the past, which we were one of them, because I said, yes, please send us that. He's going to provide us that information, which is hopefully going to push the state to say, well, I guess we should do that too. So that'll be exciting to be able to have a little bit more actionable information on WIDA this year. The rest of the state testing with Smarter Balance, which is ELA and math, and WACAS, which is the science assessment, is also commencing. Everyone will be starting that next week. Some schools are starting later than next week, but we are starting next week, and it'll take about a month to conclude the state assessment. Program planning, the TNL team has been meeting with every principal in every building to kind of review programs and course offerings, and with Kim too, to look at how we're staffing some of the stuff, but looking at our various special services and what's working well with stuff, what are our next steps, how can we align, so we've been spending a lot of time digging into that and making some shifts, planning for some shifts moving into next year. Proficiency maps, you guys have heard me talk about those before, but that is really important foundational work for our PLCs functioning well, and just for instruction to be happening in a way where we can respond to student data, is if we have clarity on what our guaranteed outcomes are and how we're assessing that. So over this last month, most of the K-5 teams have released at this point to do some more finalized work on that, and many of our secondary teams. And I think we are going to hit our goal of having some public-facing documents ready for that. And I'm really excited that it's going to help us, like I said, with how we look at student learning in our buildings. So making some progress with that. But there's been some sort of making it to the finish line heavy lifts on that this past month. Adoptions, we are wrapping up this month our final decisions around the high school social studies. And as a reminder, high school social studies, it's a science year, but high school social studies is adopting because they asked to delay their adoption last year. And we approved that. So it's high school social studies and science, since it's a science year. And Morgan decided not to keep with their current science material, so they're not adopting. And K-5 just finished a 5-year rollout of NGSS aligned science kits that we get through ESD 105. So they also did not need to adopt. So we took this opportunity to look at what's happening with math. But we are finalizing some of those decisions. We meet with the IMC on Tuesday of next week to present those materials and recommendations. And at some point in the future, you guys will be seeing those recommendations. And then we have also been working on refining our school improvement planning processes. So excited about this as well, particularly now that we have a strategic plan and are finalizing and developing those indicators of success, really figuring out, okay, how does all of our improvement work, ensure that we're focused on that and that we have those nesting goals, nesting improvement plans, that we can see the connections between what we say is a priority and what we're working on improving. So we've been going through a process of working with buildings on that. And that's my update for tonight.
Board, any questions?
No, again, no question, just a comment. I'm so glad to see the pieces starting to fall into place, the things that we can look at and the things we can measure, the indicators of, like, we'll have something to actually give us some data for our indicators of success once we get all those proficiency maps done. So that's super exciting. So thank you for all the sweat.
All right. Thank you very much, Jen. Next up, Troy and the superintendent update.
All right. And I've got a few items to go through tonight. I do want to kind of piggyback on what Jen was talking about, and it's also sort of Kathy's comment. So we're really pleased and happy that our teams have made so much progress, recently on those proficiency maps. And it ties together with adoptions, right? Our adoptions will become better and more powerful when we are aligning our materials that we purchase to a much higher level understanding on our part of what our essential outcomes we want. How does that look like? What does it look like for a student to achieve those at each grade level? And that's what those proficiency maps are about. So that's a really big step that our teams have made. And so we're very, very happy and pleased with their progress on that, because it will adoptions without materials adoptions without that level of knowing yourself, so to speak, speaking of ourselves as a system, it can then descend into, what looks best, and although everything now is going to, there's always an online portion and subscriptions and whatnot. But, in the past, it was like, I like how this page is laid out when you flip a textbook, and that didn't always match up, to really what we're trying to get to. So it's a big step for us for a lot of different reasons. And so we're excited about that and real happy that we're there. So legislative advocacy, this is depressing, but we'll talk about it briefly. The session's almost done. The budget discussions are getting serious and challenging, and they're staying up all night arguing about the new taxes that they're going to do, because they need to figure that out before we do the budget. For us, as much time and effort as we've put in this year in creating awareness around our issues and in education and focusing on what we refer to as the big three and getting that information out and having our legislators recognize what the big three is. The financial situation in the state and the amount of money that is committed to maintenance in the budget. So that's really where the majority of new spending that they will talk about in the budget is really just what was already required to maintain existing programs. And so, we're getting there. There will be some MSOC bump. We certainly raise the awareness of what it is. We've talked a lot about, insurance costs, natural gas, some of the things that everybody has experienced. But Jen and I were talking this week about, really another part of MSOC is supposed to pay for our adoptions and things like that. And it doesn't come close, when you put everything together. And inflation in our materials is every bit as much of a concern as rising insurance costs and things like that. And we probably didn't talk enough about that with legislators. Not like it would have made a difference with the financial situation, but it's another thing for us to go back. We've entered the era, whether we recognize it or not, we've entered the era of the subscription economy. Right. I mean, where does Apple make their money? The subscriptions they get you to pay for each month. They're shifting, and the hardware makes a splash and things like that. But we're really a subscription economy. Farmers are fighting, you buy a John Deere, you have to have a John Deere person fix it. They're fighting for open source. And so that's actually caused a great deal of inflation in the materials world. So we're going to continue to think about that through the budget process. There was a bill that we were sort of asked to at the last second, first thing this morning, that was heard at 1:30 to do with levy lids and as their funding. It looks like they were working really, really hard to pass a levy lid lift, which would go against the court ruling in McCleary. But a part of that levy lift lid that across the state we've been advocating for is you have to then adjust the formula for levy equalization. We don't get levy equalization, so it doesn't help us, but a significant number of our neighbors do, and particularly in our region. And so that's a major tool for equitable funding for our students across the state when certain districts can, Bellevue, for example, who's led the charge for raising the levy lid, where they can raise their rate by 5 cents and generate 20 or 30 extra $1 million, yet where Granger can't even get to the maximum levy passed, and so therefore they have to go where they know their community will vote for, and then bank on that levy equalization to try to create some equity from what Bellevue can do. So I don't know how that worked out. The hearing was at 1:30. I know that districts were going to be very, other than a few that significantly benefit, we're going to be against it because it doesn't help all students. And as I told Superintendent Reichdahl last year when they were first bringing this stuff up, I'm not a fan of it because I don't think I'm not going to celebrate the fact that would be allowed to tax our own people more. That just doesn't make sense to me when the state's constitutional paramount duty is to fund K through 12 education. So it's going to be a rocky next, last week or so for us and for the legislators. They have a hard job, right? It's incredibly challenging. We're one piece of the pie. We're supposed to be the most important piece, but things are happening out there. We're trying to adjust to the national climate and how things are going, and they're definitely trying to keep their rainy day fund intact in case we are to lose federal funding for a number of things, including K-12, so they could try to at least buy us a year of what we're expecting in federal funding before we have to make decisions. So it's not the greatest session for us, but they have been listening, and it's really just our dollars and cents. And so we'll see where we end up here after the next week. It's definitely not what we had hoped for back in the fall. But we also have been heard. There's no doubt in my mind we've been listened to and we've been heard. So it's just, everybody's got to make decisions, and that's their role. So any questions about the legislative stuff? Okay, so then the bond refunding or refinancing. So that's been stressful this month as well, but we got it done. It will be finalized next week. Everything's already been agreed to, and there's not really any changes. It's just kind of that closing date, so to speak. Like when you refinance your house or you get a mortgage, you have gone through all of it. Everything's ready to go. It was a big priority. That crash in April really threw a loop into our plans. And, we decided to go through with it when we had a good day. We started the market watching and tried to time it. We managed to do a pretty good job because the rates we got lasted about 2 more days and then went downhill again. And then they're just kind of all over the place. We wouldn't have been out anything other than what it cost us to get our rating from Moody's if we had pulled and walked away, but we would have had to spend an awful lot of time figuring out when everything was going to be normal to get back in. And then we would have had to start the whole entire process over. We couldn't have just used the same paperwork. Kim would have had to redo everything, even though most of it would be the same. So we got ourselves that savings of about 1.3 million, which is hopeful. And our advisors through ESD 112 and DA Davidson, I think did an exemplary job because they were very, very honest with us. And we had a lot of emergency meetings or be ready here. And their bond buyer, who's been doing it for 30 years at least, he was just exasperated. But he gave us just really solid advice that you hope when you're in a little bit of a crisis and you're not familiar with that you get that. So kudos to those people who helped us out tremendously. Just in case questions come up, and I haven't had many, but we talk about this is not money that we've collected and are giving back. This is just 1.3 million over the course of the bonds that just won't be collected. So we don't touch it. We don't have anything to do with it. And then hopefully we've stabilized the market in 4 years because we'll be eligible to look at the 2019 bonds there. Learned a lot through the process. I actually look forward, if we have the right environment, of going through it again because I know more what we're doing and we'll be more familiar with it. And if it's stable, we will be more likely to hit our targets. I know some other districts, I learned how they time things out. And so like Monroe was supposed to go a couple of days after us and they pulled out because they had set a fairly high level of what was going to work for them. And it was so far off, it wasn't going to make sense. So it's a pretty complicated thing, but it was a good learning experience for us. And like I said, in the end, I think we did the right thing. And I think our advisors really helped us find that right time to do it. So any questions about that process as we wrap it up?
So the 1.3 million, that's net of the cost of the facilitating of the, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think yes. I forget what the number was. Yeah, it was about 1.9, probably a little less than that. Actually, it would have been 1.7. So, yeah. Okay. Then strategic planning. Obviously, we've wrapped that up, had a final meeting. Thanks to all the committee members and to all of your time. We're waiting until we obviously get documents and we finalize a few things, but just, in talking with some of the people in the district that were on the committee, everybody's really anxious and excited to get it out there. The more they think about it and process it, everybody's is really pretty happy with it. We will look to finalize our indicators of success and this is like I told you earlier, my dates are also at our 5/14 study session. I haven't heard back from Bill and Linda, but I'm sure they'll be there if they can. And so that'll be a good chunk of our study session. We'll also, just so you know, have the prevention club from the high school. They didn't get a chance to go to their state conference this year. I think there was a conflict with something going on at the high school and they were going to present. So I'm going to have them do their presentation that they prepared and said that they can have some time, like they don't have to rush through it. They can have some time and you guys can interact with them and have some questions. They have a lot of good things going on at the high school. So we'll do that. That'll be primarily what we're doing. And how that relates is, so Jen was going through those adoptions. So while we're going to have a fairly streamlined meeting tonight, our May ones will be a little bit longer because we're going to have to do some of that adoption work. We may be able to fit a little one in maybe in the study session, but we'll be doing that as part of the TNL at the business meeting to get that going. But one of the interesting things that we've had in talking with principals are very excited, Jen and the team, and we've been working on streamlining the SIP process, taking the lessons we learned from this year, and now kind of also getting ready for the SIP. And and helping calm them down. Your SIP is not a recreation of the strategic plan. Like all of a sudden there was a lot of angst. Boy, this is going to be like, no, the strategic plan is our umbrella, and you're going to build your SIP from within that, and you're going to be focusing on things. And then at the board level and at our level, we'll be monitoring all of these success indicators. You're going to be picking some things you want to work on, and then we're going to be talking about how do those things impact all the rest of this. And so it's exciting to see them get excited, but we're also having to lower a little bit of anxiety levels. Like, and this is a plan that's going to last us for 5 years. It's not expected to be accomplished by October of next year. But that's good. And we talked a little bit today in our secondary admin meeting about starting to talk about rollout, and we haven't made any hard plans or anything like that, but just understanding that because we haven't had an active one in the past, like we can't expect our staff to just wrap their head around it all at once. We'll talk about it. We'll go, and they're going to go, yeah, okay, I get that. It makes sense. But then over time, then their heads are going to be racing too. And so it's just about us taking and being intentional about taking the things in the plan and just making it a part of our daily conversations, or this meeting, we're covering this and this is how it impacts, or just being able to connect things. So it's been really interesting since we sort of wrapped it up, and especially the people that were a part of the process getting really excited about it. So we'll be working on that. We're excited to work together to get it all kind of wrapped up. We're looking forward to seeing the improved version rather than the draft version, and get a chance to start looking at that. I don't know yet when we'll get that, but they'll let me know. And truthfully, I kind of have a backup plan if we decide we don't, if we'd like another look at it, another set of eyes. So I know that was just really a real quick draft that they put together, but I had a few people like, what if it doesn't look right? What, reacts, but in case I've got a backup plan. So yeah.
On the indicators of success, can you just remind me, is that what we as the board come up with, those indicators that we want to measure, or is it something that the committee, the administration committee will suggest?
It's us. That's kind of our role, is to say, okay, the committee helped define all these things, and now we're going to decide what we're going to use to help keep track of our success. And that's, and that doesn't mean we've necessarily set them in stone, never to be touched, right? Like that's what we're trying to get everybody to understand about these plans. If we go through and we decide on it, and then all of a sudden we get through a year and we're like, gosh, we really wish we would have added this, or something new comes along that we haven't had in the past to be able to measure that data, we can have that discussion to add it. I mean, but Jen and her team have really done a lot of work on refining it, thinking about it. So we think we're going to come up with something that's pretty good. And the best thing we're trying to get everybody to understand is it's pretty much already things we're all doing. It's just organizing us. And Aubrey is on track, and I double checked this with Jen. We're quite pleased with their customer service. And so we're actually going to get, this leads me into the next session. So our next topic. So Leslie, you can click. Thank you. But they have our discipline module, which we're going to move all of our tracking of behavior incidents into Aubrey, and then just put the stuff into Skyward that we have to report to the state, weapons and those things. But they have it pretty much really close to being ready for us to start piloting on a small scale. So we're going to have a few buildings, a few teachers. So we'll have a chance during the month of May to get feedback on it and to provide that for them. And then they're pretty much on track. They as Jen said, they've already loaded. They're not completed with all of the data, but they've already loaded more data and have it correctly in the system than PowerSchool ever did in 18 months. So is that still accurate? Yes. So that's been a big project and a heavy lift this year. And at this point in time, fingers crossed, but we're in a better space since when we start working on it, January, February. than we ever got on our last try at it over about 18 months. So we're really looking forward to that pilot, figuring out how it looks and how it works and getting that feedback. And then as Jen told the admin team today, the secondary, one of our next big steps, which we're really excited about, is once we create the indicators of success, we'll hand that to Aubrey as well and said, can you, all these things that, we want to measure, when you have access to them, can you create some templates for us and think about how we can graphically represent some of it? And so that will just be something we've never had before as a district. So, so far been a great partnership. DOJ plan, we're rolling with that. It's a little bit of a lull right now. We're getting back into it. I met with our consultants. I met with Shane and Alicia from ESC 105 this week just to kind of check in and look at our timeline. We will submit, one of the first steps, and we want to have this ready to go before we ever get to July 1st, is have our policies and procedures looked at. WASDA is making an adjustment. So we went back last meeting to our prior policy 3205. They're making a few adjustments, or have made. I just need to look at them clearly, have Rhonda put her eyes on them, to the old procedure. It's just all sort of minor and wordsmithing and things like that. So we'll have them look at that, and that will be something we obviously have to submit right away to DOJ. Our training plan really starts with our admin team on after school gets out, June 16th and 17th. We have some time with them. It's not going to be completely devoted to this, but it will be hopefully devoted to the Aubrey discipline stuff and preparing ourselves for things. We'll have more training in August. So we're looking at that. I haven't heard back from her, but I reached out to Paige this week to set up a meeting with Rhonda, Jen, and I about, some, whereas we start really thinking about how we want to stair step through the 3 years, our training for our staff. So we're rolling with that, and we will be, or we're in the focus of trying to get through the legislative session and kind of getting our staffing worked out. And then that'll kind of be, at least for me, the next big thing is really making sure we're ready with our plan prior to July 1st, so we can get it signed off, and then we can start executing it. So I'll share that with you as we develop it along the way, and keep working on it. So any questions about anything? Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Troy. All right, next up, we move into business, and first up is the financial update, and Kim Snyder.
So tonight I'll be going over March 2025 financial status update. We are now 7 months into the fiscal year, and the general fund is on target with 53.67% of the budgeted revenue and 53.23% of budgeted expenditures. The fund balance is sitting at 13.18% at this time. For the month of March, the district spent $2.08 million on certificated employee salaries for a total of $14.3 million for the year. $774,000 for classified employees' salaries for a total of $5.2 million for the year. $1.04 million for benefits for a total of $7.3 million for the year. $150,000 for supplies for a total of $1.7 million for the year. $483,000 on professional services for a total of $4 million for the year. $12,000 on travel for a total of $39,000 for the year. And we did not have any expenditures for capital items in March, but our total for the year is $37,000. For a total of $4.55 million in March and a total of $32.6 million for the year. As of the end of March, the general fund has $2.4 million in cash, $7.9 million in investments, and $2.1 million outstanding warrants. There were no discrepancies between Kittitas County Treasurer and the trial balance. The capital project fund is showing 92.93% of revenue has been received and 2.27% of expenditures have been reported. The fund balance comes in at $4 million. As of the end of March, the capital project fund has $24,000 in cash and $3.9 million in investments and $0 in outstanding warrants. And just a reminder that we did receive the state money in February, so that's why it's so much higher, is because we received that state money. I don't, and there was no discrepancy between Kittitas County Treasurer and trial balance. The debt service fund has received 49.36% of revenue and 69.21% of expenditures have been reported. The fund balance comes in at 1.6 million and our next payment is June 1st. As of the end of March, the debt service fund had 118,000 in cash, 1.5 million in investments, and 0 outstanding warrants. And there was no discrepancies between Kittitas County Treasurer and the trial balance. The ASB fund has received 55.81% of revenue and 34.77% of expenditures have been reported. The fund balance comes in at 651,000. As of the end of March, the ASB fund had 51,000 in cash, 640,000 in investments, and 51,000 in outstanding warrants. The private purpose fund is a fiduciary fund. There is not a budget status report. The fund balance sits at approximately 34,000. As of the end of March, the private purpose trust fund has $1 in cash and 34,000 in investment and 0 in outstanding warrants. There were no discrepancy between Kittitas County Treasurer and the trial balance. The transportation vehicle fund, this revenue for this fund came in at 5.37% and 0 expenditures. We're still waiting for the buses to come in. The fund balance is 935,000 at this time. As of the end of March, the transportation vehicle fund had $1 in cash, 938,000 in investments, and 0 in outstanding warrants. And there were no discrepancies between Kittitas County Treasurer and the trial balance. I'd like to remind everyone that this report is presented with the information I have currently and is subject to change as we continue through the year. I also would like to remind everyone that revenue sources are used in the current funds for authorized expenditures and can't usually be transferred to be used in different funds unless authorized within the adopted budget and within the accounting laws. And do you have any questions?
All right, Kim, this goes back to something in the consent agenda, so I apologize for putting it in the wrong spot. But there was like a large check for benefits or something that was voided. And
Yes.
I was curious about what happened.
Yes, we did discover that Washington State SEP did not cash one of our checks for several months. And when we discovered that, we were like, and they're like, yeah, we don't know why we didn't. And so we voided it and we reissued it. So now we're all even and we're all in balance. And that's why. Thank you.
Were there any other questions for Kim? All right, thank you very much for the update, Kim. Next up is the enrollment report.
Okay, enrollment is hanging in there. We're in our spring, slow slide a little bit, which is unfortunately typical, but our average for the year is still above our projected enrollment. And with 2 counts left, unless something really strange happens, we're going to hit about where we projected. So that's good. That's always the goal to try to hit with that. One thing that I should talk about as relates to this with the legislature. One of the tricks, accounting tricks, and I know accountants don't use tricks, right, Madeline? You use sound business practices, but the accounting tricks that the legislature is going to use is they are going to probably shift the payment to us from June 30th to July 1 so they can count it as a savings in a fiscal year, but it's really the same amount. For some districts, that can cause, if they have low cash flow, the fund balances could possibly cause a little temporary disturbance. I think we would probably be okay, but they are going to look at some tricks of moving money from one fiscal year to the other so they can count it as a savings, which is a typical legislative process. But it really won't be a savings. It just doesn't, but we are used to getting our money transferred to us on a certain date. We issue, everything's direct deposit now, right? And so the money goes right in. So there could be some issues for districts. I don't necessarily think that it's our cash flow position and how our cash flow chart looks is always good, but that really could be a problem. And it could be something that ends up in the news media if I don't know what Tacoma's situation is, but last year they were remember having issues with how their cash flow was going to work over the summer. It wasn't necessarily their overall budget, but just the way their reserves were down and the way their cash flow was working. So that's part of the legislative dance to end it. But our enrollment is going to end up pretty close to our projection, which is good.
Any questions for the enrollment report board? All right, thanks for the update, Troy. We have no policies tonight, board. So that takes us into board reports. I do not have a board chair report, and Tasha is not here tonight, so we do not have a legislative update from Tasha. So that takes us into community input. And we don't have anybody here in person, but let me get my, so Leslie, if you could get us set up for public comment, individuals in person wishing to be heard by the board or on Zoom need to add their names to the document in the Zoom chat box. If you are unable to do this, individuals may also be recognized within Zoom by using the icon or emoji to show you are raising your hand for public comment. And we'll just give it a second to see if anybody signs up. All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and close public comment for tonight. Board, that takes us into new business. Do we have any new business, board? All right, takes us into our meeting closing. If we have no new business, I checked with Troy. We do not have an executive session tonight. Huh? Oh. So that takes us to board calendar. Board, do we have any discussion about board calendar? Just a reminder that next Thursday we have our board work day, and that's at 8 a.m.
Yeah, we got it.
And where are we meeting?
Board that update.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Is there anything we need to do to prepare for that workday? Just come ready to discuss. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Where you're gonna be is on your calendar.
Okay. Great, thank you, Leslie. Anything else for board calendar? Clarification and next steps. Does not look like that. Okay. Signing of official documents tonight? Leslie?
Yes.
Okay, so don't run off. We have some documents to sign. Board, is there any discussion for our meeting tonight? All right, that was a nice quick meeting. If there's no other discussion for our meeting tonight, board, I'll go ahead and say we are adjourned. Thank you very much.